A few words about the coming Purim. First of all, the name Haman appears in the entire Megillah 54 times. Today, of course, it's easy to check this with a computer. The Vilna Gaon noticed this and said that the correct nusach of Hanisim, the special prayer that we say both in Shmoneh Esrei, in the pre-last brocha, and in Birkat Hamazon, in the second blessing, the additional prayer about the miracle of Purim should have exactly 54 words, just like the number of times that the name Haman appears in the Megillah. Now, in our nusach, usually there's actually only 52 words in this prayer. So the Gra said that the correct nusach has two additional words. Instead of V'ashavot lo gimulo birosho, V'ashavot lo et gimulo al rosho. Two extra words, two extra prepositions that make up to make the nusach of 54 words. The interesting thing is, as everybody notices, there are two holidays when there are these additions in both Shmoneh Esrei and Birkat Hamazon, in the blessings of thankfulness, the brocha of Modim and the brocha in Birkat Hamazon, the Delicha. Of course, the holidays are Hanukkah and Purim. And the Hanukkah edition is much longer than the Purim edition. And usually the explanation given is the fact that in Hanukkah time, the danger was not for our lives so much as for our religion. The difference between the miracle of Hanukkah and the miracle of Purim is similar to the difference between the Bolsheviks and the Nazis. The Nazis wanted to destroy us physically. They just wanted to kill all the Jewish people. And the Bolsheviks didn't mind if the Jews would assimilate and would not have any Judaism as long as they abandoned the religion. There was actual persecution of all religious Jews. Many of them were killed, some of them were sent to Siberia, and some of them died there, some of them survived. So the history of Soviet type of anti-Semitism is quite different. It wasn't a physical destruction. Whoever gave up on religion would become a member of the society of workers and others, the general Bolshevik socialist society that they were trying to build. So the Hanukkah, of course, was the time when the Jewish people were not persecuted physically if they would abandon their religion. But in times of Purim, the danger was purely physical. Every Jew would be killed. Doesn't matter how religious they are. Many Jews may have been quite assimilated in the Persian Empire at that time, especially in the capital. So, of course, the physical danger is something that people understand really well today too. Everybody remembers, so many non-religious Jews who say, we will not forget. Everybody remembers the Holocaust. That everybody understands is important. When it's physical danger, everybody understands that. So therefore the prayer that was added on Purim is relatively short. It's very clear what was going on. The Jews were in danger, they prayed to Hashem, and they were saved. On the other hand, on Hanukkah, the danger is not quite as obvious. And there were many Jews who also wanted the same exact thing, wanted the assimilation and promoted it. And that's why the prayer is much longer, explaining everything that had to do with the Hanukkah miracle. And notice how these two holidays, therefore, have completely different mitzvot. On Hanukkah, the main mitzvot are all spiritual. There's no real mitzvah to have big meals during Hanukkah. But there is a mitzvah to light the candles and to say Hallel, to say praises. On Purim, on the other hand, we do not say Hallel, and there is reading of the Megillah, of course, that tells us what happened. But the main mitzvot of Purim, other than the reading of the Megillah, are all physical. And that is eating, drinking, helping the poor, giving friends gifts, mishloach manot. All of this, of course, are physical mitzvot that promote more physical happiness. We were physically saved, so the mitzvot are all physical. That's what the Levush already noticed, and Avraham Wasserman, a student of Chofetz Chaim, develops this idea in much greater detail. Now, today, of course, is the first Purim after the attack on Simchat Torah in Israel that killed more people in one day than ever since the Holocaust. And for the first time possibly, the Jews, at least in this generation, the younger people who were born after the Yom Kippur War, felt for the first time that there is actual danger. Until now, people thought, okay, there are terror acts. Of course, nobody is secure from dying at any moment. Everybody knows that. But something of that caliber, that the army that so many people trusted, would all the secret services, all the people who, there are so many organizations in Israel that constantly monitor what may happen, and in particular this fence, the security fence, state of the art, incredibly expensive and very modern, equipped with all kinds of monitoring systems, that all of that would fail on one day, and that the barbaric Hamas members would just come, kill, rape, destroy, torture in the worst possible manners that are impossible to describe. All of this came as a terrible surprise, and the Jewish people again feel a little bit like in the times when Haman's decree became known. According to the Vilna Gaon, originally Haman sent two types of letters. One was sent to everybody that they should be ready on the 13th of Adar, that this will be the day when it will be announced who is the enemy of the state and who should be killed. But he didn't say who it's going to be, that it's the Jews. On the other hand, to all the leaders and officers of provinces, he sent a second letter, a secret letter, that it's the Jewish people who are singled out to be killed on that horrible day. And the reason he did this, of course, was very wise, so that the Jews are not going to hide or not going to prepare, so nobody will know. It will take them by surprise. However, many of the Jews found out. The Jews often find out what happened and realized that it's them. Don't think that it's just somebody, it's them. They are going to be killed on the 13th of Adar. And there was a terrible mourning everywhere the letters came, where the Jews would find out that they are the prepared victim. All of the Jews, according to royal decree, would be destroyed. Later on, when Mordechai was able to get Haman hanged, the decree of Haman was not revoked, and it was impossible to revoke the decree or that's already signed by the seal of the king. But what Mordechai asked is to send a second letter with the same messengers. Once they came back, a second letter was sent that would say that basically the mistake happened, that the previous letter didn't have one word in it, Oivei HaYehudim, the enemies of the Jews. Meaning, it's as if it was simply a mistaken letter, the previous one. It's not that we're revoking the decree that cannot be revoked, rather we're correcting one error, scribal error. It's Oivei HaYehudim, the enemies of the Jews that can be killed. The Jews are allowed to stand up and fight their enemies on that day. And that's what happened on the 13th of Adar. The regular people never knew that there was actually a change here. As far as they were concerned, they just heard that this is the people that were supposed to be killed are the enemies of the Jews. They never knew that originally it was meant to be a decree against the Jews. However, all the leaders and officers, they knew that there were two decrees actually, and they didn't really know necessarily if there is really a decree from the king each time, or maybe at some point Haman sent his own decrees, and then later when Mordechai was able to, through intrigues, get rid of Haman, he sent his own decrees, and maybe the king knows nothing about any of this. That's why Esther had to ask the king that in the capital they'll have another chance to kill the enemies, so that everybody will know that the king is aware of what's going on. It is indeed a royal decree. And that's why, says the Vilna Gaon, we celebrate Purim on the 14th everywhere except the walled cities, the ancient walled cities. But in the ancient walled cities, they celebrate Purim on the 15th, on Shushan Purim. Why? Because, as he says, it was the officers that resided in these walled cities, and these officers knew that the original decree was against the Jews, and never really knew for sure that the king is aware of any of what's going on. That's why it was so important to have one more day to destroy our enemies in Shushan, specifically for the walled cities. But as far as the non-walled cities and smaller villages were concerned, they knew nothing about any of this. They thought that the original decree was always against the enemies of the Jews. And may we be able to overpower our enemies this time as well, that all the people who are trying to destroy us will be themselves destroyed and will never be able to perpetuate the type of massacre they did already half a year ago. And may true peace come on the land of Israel and the entire world.